I get a dance.
Hi.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Look at this.
Mamma mia.
Recognize that?
She's going to love it. She's going to love it.
Little shout out to our friend
fantastic.
who introduced us, Chris Matheny. Yes, yes.
Nice.
Lance Powell. Welcome to Life in the New Normal podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. This is fantastic.
Yes, welcome back, everybody. This is Lance Powell, a good friend of mine. I've known Lance for a long time. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But he's got a new company called Tula that we're going to tell y'all about. Every time I remember talking to you years ago when I was in visual effects and you were in gaming, I could always call on you for like, do you have a 3D guy that does XYZ? Because
right.
you were always putting teams together all over the world and managing them. So y'all, Lance is like, put teams together in every corner where it could be productive in whatever area of the world and run them. So he speaks from a lot of experience of managing people. So I wanted to just make sure people
that's
knew that about
awesome.
you. And then, of course, there's our fabulous life coach, Dina Paduano. And I am Ashley Heydrich, the ever humble guinea pig. But today, maybe Lance will get to be the guinea pig. I don't know.
This is early morning talking. I haven't done this
sorry.
in a while.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
We're already full of energy. I know how that is. A recent episode, I might have mentioned wanting to slap somebody first thing in the morning because she had so much energy. That's another story. Anyway, Lance has developed this amazing idea and company that I'm going to let him tell you about, but I want to take it back how I met you where we both were at that time.
Oh, no.
Versus where you are now. We'll be quick. It'll be relatively painless. You and I met through a mutual friend, and we were very much in the party scene, I would say, in Los Angeles, having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I would say not the healthiest of the party scene.
Not even close. No,
Yeah.
we were at the leading edge, is what we like to say.
Is that right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that? About where you were and what sort of prompted you to want to make a change in your life to do something like what you're doing now?
So about that party scene,
Yeah.
that was really the kind of cornerstone of my life. Partying and development was like my being. It fueled my day-to-day. It, charged up my relationships and how I created the dynamics within our friend group.
And it was Los Angeles. I mean, it was fun. I'm not going to lie.
We had the best time. We literally had the last
It was a lot of fun.
time
And we
of
were
any
all
generation.
we were all in the entertainment / gaming. You were in gaming and visual effects and stuff. I was in film. I mean, it was just like, it was a fun crowd.
Partying, we had drinking. This would have been my 15th year at Burning Man. Like, we did a lot. I remember telling someone one night, I said, hey, it's at like 2 a.m. Where are you guys at? And they said, yeah, we're at this other party. Where are you? I said, clear across town, coming from my second party, going to my third party, then wrapping up at like 5 a.m. at my fourth party. That was the era that we lived in.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's some partying.
It's a bit much. Like, you can feel it. Like, your liver's just cringing just even hearing this, right?
Right.
And so what was interesting is that the end of 2019 was December. It was like the month that the ball hit the floor. Like, I found the bottom, which I didn't think that was impossible.
When I last saw you?
Yeah.
Because the last time I saw you,
That's
you
exactly
were not
right.
in a great place.
And that was December. That was maybe just either before Christmas.
Yes,
And
we
so
had all met at a birthday party, maybe at a bar, and you had just stopped drinking. You were really giving sobriety a shot because life had gone a little sideways.
Yeah, I lost the most important thing in my life, which is my partner, and it was because of like the partying and the intensity of it, and just the constant running around. And so, this is right before COVID hit. Hit, it changed a lot of the dynamics for everyone. It became this, do you want to be in isolation or do you want to come over and wipe down some mail with me? And so it became, let's do the wipe down mail party. And
wipe down mail? You mean like hot male bodies or what?
No, do you remember COVID? Like, everybody's getting
Said
their
that for
mail
Dina.
wiping. Oh.
Sorry.
I'm watching you, Dina.
I know, I'm not.
She's like, I'm
Listen,
staying silent. But
You're
it was
talking about because of the COVID scare
oh yeah,
on the mail and everything we
yeah.
touched.
We're like cleaning off
Copy.
everything that everyone
Yeah.
touches, and it was like Fort Knox around here.
Uh-huh.
Impossible to get in even for a germ, but it changed our dynamics. It was a titanic shift of I've got to make a huge change. I don't know what that change looks like. I don't even know what change is. Luckily, my partner, Keely, had been doing a lot of work beforehand. She identified my issues, but she didn't like plant deep seeds into what they were. She just said, you'll figure it out. And so
Shout out
over
to
the
beautiful Keely.
yeah, she gave
She's
me
lovely.
space to figure my stuff out, knowing that drinking was off the table, right? So drinking is off the table. That was if it was still on the table, that would have been a completely different
Okay, so now let
conversation.
me ask you a quick question. So you had gone through a breakup when you said your former partner you lost. That was a breakup you're talking about, not a business partner.
That was a former partner. That was Keely. So Keely and I actually broke up.
I didn't realize that was
Oh.
Keely you were talking about
Yeah.
because I had not
Oh
met
yeah.
Keely yet. Okay, sorry. So you guys went through a horrible breakup.
hmm
When y'all came back together, you weren't drinking. Was she drinking?
She was doing whatever she wanted to do.
Okay.
It was me that was the issue,
Okay.
and so it was my
And
drinking
no
that had to
judgment.
stop.
Just asking where you were for
Of course.
context.
hmm
Yeah, yeah.
hmm What was interesting in stopping drinking was trying to find out the root. I didn't know to look for the root, but I knew that there was a root in there. And so, to defeat a drug with a drug, I took mushrooms, went in very deep into my psyche, found the root. Couldn't understand what the core of the root was, but started cutting it out. And just after that, within a day or two, I reached out to my mom and I said, "Hey, can you tell me about like alcoholism in our family?" And she's cracking up because she's got wine in her hand, and she's
Uh-huh.
like, "Yeah, you come from a long line of alcoholics." And I'm like,
And you never knew
"That's right.
that?
No,
Wow.
I just thought they liked to drink."
Well,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah. And I have
Right.
same. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
And they were
same.
carrying their own generational, reason to drink
Course.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and they don't even know to call it that. So how can they explain it to you? They're just doing probably what they've always known and
Yeah.
having a good time, and all of a sudden one day we wake up and we're like, "Wait a minute, something feels off here."
hmm Yeah.
Yeah.
During the riots and the pandemic, where I wanted to be out on the street and like add my voice to that change,
Mhm.
one of the things that I saw that was happening was I was stressing out. Like my stress levels was just like slowly inching up, and it felt like the work situation had changed dramatically much. It
Mhm.
was all the forces and being locked indoors, and so my
So like
screws
the
were just
George Floyd riots, the Black
hmm
Lives Matter, women's rights, all that stuff was
all of
starting to
it.
come to the surface and people weren't taking it anymore. There was a
Yeah,
lot of
that's right.
stress and there was a lot of fear also of like, well, is our city going to erupt into violence at any moment? I remember that feeling sitting in
Right.
Los Angeles going, am I safe here? Is shit going to go
Powder
sideways
keg.
any minute?
Right.
Yeah, powder keg,
Yeah.
exactly. I remember that feeling.
Absolutely. And so there was a bunch of us who were roughly in the same spot. Our minds were getting wound tight, and we decided to go camping. So there's about 12 of us. We escaped camping. Just getting away from the city was one layer. We all decided to drop acid. I hope that's okay on this show.
Of course, you can say whatever is truth, your
Okay.
truth, man. And a lot of people have
It,
used plant medicine too, so don't be afraid to talk about that. Whatever was your
okay.
journey was your journey.
Okay. This was a huge spark because it got me to take a step back from myself. I said something in passing to someone that I never thought I'd hear myself say. She asked me a question. We're passing each other like this. She asked me a question, and I said, "Well, I don't accept myself anyway." And I kept walking. I took like 3 paces, and she was like, "Work on that," right? And I'm like, "Yeah, okay. Well, I'm tripping. I'm gonna go deep into the woods and go work on that." And so that's what I did. It was a deep contemplation of where I was at that point in time mentally, and what I saw in that step was the layers of like societal veneer that we put on top of each other. All of these kind of impressions and how they oppress people on the layer beneath them. And it really struck me that I saw myself somewhere in the middle of that stack. right? And I was like, whoa, not up here where I thought I was, but in the middle of this thing, coded by a bunch of language. And so I said, well, I got to get out of this thing, whatever that is. And so the next day it was, I know I got to start meditating. I know I've got to like change my dynamics up. And
I have a question.
yes,
I have two questions. When you went into the woods, when y'all decided to take that trip, was it with the intention of figuring out some sort of change for yourself, or did it
not at all.
just...
For
So
me,
you just happened upon this person that kind of pinged you and caused you to think something differently in the right moment?
absolutely. And even just saying those words, like I caught myself and I'm like, why would I say that?
Right.
You're in the middle of this trip and my awareness immediately went to that question and it was like just hovering there for a while. I'm like, well, I got to figure this out. And so the biggest effect is that, when I do anything like a hallucinogenic, invariably on the other side of the peak, I go into a corner for a while to contemplate. That's my mind's open. I can go deep into a bunch of different areas and do some just investigation. And so that was really the moment to go do that. Like I was just coming down, everyone else was trying to wrap up their partying. I'm like, I'm gonna go into the woods and be for a minute, just figure this stuff out. And so
in nature, let it speak to you, right?
absolutely. And that quiet and the peace just really allowed me to just like have my moment and open up. And it didn't show me everything. It really kind of zoomed in and showed me like, this is where you are right now. These are the forces that have kind of gotten you here. Here's a couple different ways of really examining these forces. What are you going to do? And that, what are you going to do was, I was like, well, it's the serendipity, right?
Well, I love that it came to you in that way because you're so smart. So, of course, when the universe speaks to you, it's like, well, Lance, here's 1, 2, 3, 4. What are you going to do about it? To me, it would be like, Ashley, you're being an idiot. Time to tighten up. Put the wine glass down.
Logical mind, right? The logical mind is
speaks
a blessing
to you in the way
and a
you
curse.
can hear it.
Yeah, I heard it, and it was also a barrier. I had tried meditation many times over the decades. I failed. Ultimately, I didn't know what was. Like, what am I doing?
Did that
Why
come
am
to
I
you
doing this?
in the woods that you needed to try meditation again? Did that? Oh, isn't
100%.
that interesting?
Yeah.
That's so
It was
cool.
the
Nobody
first thing.
told you, like, Lance, go try this.
No.
I
It was,
love that.
my body's like,
How about that,
do
Dina?
this thing. You're supposed to do it, right? You go sit in this corner and go do that thing.
Yes.
And so I did that thing from about July to November. I was like slowly ramping up my meditations. The first 2 months was just pure torture because I still had no deep clues to what I was doing. But I was going from like 5 minutes to 10 to 15 to 20, and look, there's a little bit of space in my mind. And so there was a couple things that were happening that were like aha moments. But it wasn't until I went in and did like my first 45-minute meditation where like something clicked, and I was like, okay, like I've got a lot of space. I can see it much more clearly. My meditations went to 45 minutes for about a week. And then I had this moment where I think I was about to go to sleep. There was like this glowing orb kind of, I don't know, moving across my visual frame while my eyes are closed. And no shit, I thought I'd broken something. Like, I'm like, oh, I've got glaucoma. Like, I just broke my mind. I don't know what it was. But in poking around and doing a little bit of research, somewhere on Reddit, there was a note that someone said, I've got glowing so-and-so when my eyes are closed. What is this? And people would pop out and describe it. And once I saw that, I took the whole thing as if it was a homework project. Like, I'm like, okay, so.
What did they say that it was?
I mean, effectively, you're releasing enough stress around a plexus in some spot that the energy that's being released is kind of a little pin poke of light that's now floating through your visual, your imagination system.
Wow.
Can I ask you a question?
Please do.
When you would start meditating, did you go in with the intention that you had a question in mind or looking for an answer, or did you just go in going, okay, I'm going to sit here, focus, and see what it gives me?
None of that. Like, I didn't have anyone even telling me like going with an intention. That was like problem number one. But what did happen was, my background is making video games, and so just examining things that change is very important to us. Why? Because if you broke something, right, you've got to go fix it. So you've got to go really kind of deconstruct what you did. And so I'm like, okay, well, I've been living with my body my entire life. There's this glowing thing that's happening. These people are describing some stuff. And so I'm like, oh, there's a user's manual for this vehicle that I don't have access to, and I've got to figure it out. And so the process really became, if I'm going to take meditation seriously to a point to where I'm going to give it my all, I need to figure out what the opposing ends are. Currently, I close my eyes and the thoughts or images are rapid fire. So there's got to be an opposite side to this, or at least a side where this is not a thing anymore. And so there was a line in I scoured everything. I wish I had ChatGPT at the time, but it was a line in the Diamond Sutra that describes Buddha as sitting still to where he had a single pointed mind. And I was like, okay, well, that's got to be the opposite of where I am now. If I'm fragmented, he's describing a state of unfragmented. And so that kind of began the investigation, which is what is meditation? How deep does it go? What's it trying to solve? What are the tools? How do you access it? Right? So I went super wide with the whole thing, looking at different cultures that had meditative practices. The Navajo, I don't have an image around me right now, but there's there's a circle split into quads, and each quad has a different color. And I was like, okay, so there's a not just a spiritual connection to that, but there's a meditative process into it. The four corners represents north, south, east, west, right? Myself, my family, the ancestors who came before me are kind of facets of those different colors. And so just looking into that, going into Hinduism or Hindu and Zen and, all the metaphysical stuff and just mapping it all out and then drawing straight lines across. I was like, okay, so they're all, regardless of the culture, they're all describing the same thing.
Right.
There's a pattern here. There's something, right. There's something where we are. There's something that we cannot access right now. There's all these things that are currently blocking us. And along these different journeys, there's these modalities that you get access to. That was the very clear picture. And so I collapsed the whole thing into a vertical and then gamified the hell out of my process. And
of course you did.
Oh, that's smart.
Can we play it?
Yes, you can play it. Yeah,
that's
you can play
really
it.
Smart.
It's what it is. It's I'm having experience I didn't have before. How far can I expand it out? What can I link it up to? The thing that I'm linking it up to, is it new or is it old? If it's old, well, I've just combined these new combinations to this new thing, set that tool aside. If it's new, how deep can I expand the thing out to? And so that was really the core of the practice, but I was still in my logical mind. So the logical mind was having a great time mapping it all out until I hit a wall where the logical mind couldn't get past. And that was the very beginning of the next chapter.
That's amazing.
So
you went with what you knew, so you knew gaming, and so logically, with it's very smart, actually, very intuitive.
Thank you. Yeah, it was. I mean, as an artist, creativity is at my core. But having this vehicle that I like enough to investigate deeper, I was like, oh, there's buttons in here that I have no clues to what they do. And I'm a 5-year-old with this stuff. I want to walk into the elevator and just press them all and see what happens, see where it takes me. And so that was the beginning of the whole. Really, the second half was where things took off, because it was a very clear picture of where I was coming from and where I was going, and all the things I was getting access to was kind of just unfolding a book. These things go away, this energy rises. As this energy rises, I've got deeper access to these things. And so I saw the seesaw in it, and I was like,
so what kind of things went away? And what kind of things were rising, just to understand where your head was?
I didn't know what I was getting into. The whole concept of letting go. I didn't know what that was. I thought it was just a cool line. About 2 miles away from the gym. So every day I would walk to the gym. And one day I was like, okay, I'm going to try this whole letting go thing and see what it does, right? If letting go means that my mind is holding on to something I've identified with. I've got to identify the thing and then toss it out. And so at first I was like super nervous. I'm like, I don't want to lose who I am, right? So my process was, what junk can I get rid of? Well, I know I can get rid of all the junk before I was 17. 100% all that stuff can go. So I started going through, as a 3-year-old, I identified with Weeble Wobble, right? Lincoln Logs, Legos, Dr. Seuss books, right? And so I just kept going up age by age by age and tossing out all the things that I identified with. And the reason why I knew that I was attached to these things is I remember getting into an argument with someone when I was 14 over who was stronger, Superman or the Hulk. Right? I mean, the dumbest conversation. But I remember I get into the same argument at 18.
Who won?
It doesn't matter. If you say, well, Superman, duh, someone will say, well, if you just piss the Hulk up, he'll just become as strong as Superman. So invariably, it's the Hulk, right? But this is an argument, right? I remember at 32 having the same argument one day. And I was like, this is stupid. They're fictional characters. It doesn't matter. Right? And so that was a thought process where I'm like, okay, what if I gotten into fights with people over that was just nonsensical? Mac versus PC, Apple versus Android, Marvel versus DC, right? As boys, these are things that we naturally do, right? I've got this G.I. Joe character. Well, here's how this can beat him. All that was trash. It could all go. So the first day was like letting a few things go. The next time I was like, okay, it feels like the candy shell around my thought process was thinning out. And I'm like, okay, something's happening. So let's see if I can do 50 things today. The next day I was like, let's see if I can do 100 things. The week later I would get on a roll. I'm like, let's see if I can do 500 this week. You know, and so I just realized like how many things I was deeply connected to, all the stories. I was deep cleaning.
Wow.
And I still had no clue as to what I was doing, but what was happening was that every time I let something go, behind it was like 3 more things. It was more like looking inside of a mesh, you know, kind of like a corrugated mesh, and it's just stacked and thick. And every thread that I would pull out, I could see a little bit deeper. The other part of like this gamified process was like, how simple can I make this process? At that time, I had this thing called a mind palace, where it was a visual stage, so to speak, and on the other side of the stage was a wall. And I would visualize myself standing at the edge of the stage going, you know, okay, I'm holding on to this old story, I'm gonna let it go. And I would throw a fireball at the wall and it would puff and disappear. And that's how I was letting things go. And then I'm like, how can I do this where I'm letting go of like 5 things a second? Like, how can I get in tune that quick with my body where it's just like, that's got to go, that's got to go, that's got to go. And so the practice became shortening that time, abandoning the mind palace, right? Just connecting with the words, feeling what the words were doing, feeling how the energy, especially the big somatic energy, how that stuff would just kind of flee the body. That was like go time. And I started tracking how many things I was letting go of. And I remember going, well, this can't go too deep. I remember getting up to like 1,000, and then 3,000, and then 6,500 is where I stopped keeping track. And then it went way after that.
How was it making you feel? It must have been making you feel a certain way if you were wanting to continue to pursue it.
Lighter. I felt lighter. I felt more buoyant. I was happier. The emotions were far more regulated. When I let something go, what do I think is happening? Well, it feels like stress is being released. So let's go do some research. Okay, so somatic energy is what is bound up in negative experiences. Okay, well, what's being plugged up? Okay, well, the nerve plexus are the branches that come off the spine. They power all the organs. Then it became, oh my God. So this metaphysical, new age language of the chakras is directly linked to the plexus within the body. And I didn't want a logical mind. I didn't want to connect these two things together. I was keeping the new age stuff out because I'm like, that's for hippies. And as much as I'm a hippie, that's over there. I started plugging into Vedic science, and Vedic science had a much clearer picture that wasn't clouded by interpretation. It was a very specific language that I could identify with, and so I used that language to map over anatomy and what was happening with the mind and the mind body.
That's so cool.
And it started creating a really clear picture. And then I went back to the New Age stuff, and I was like, now I can see how people interpret it this way. Now I can see how black tourmaline could be interpreted this way. When they're saying, using this language, what they're really saying is anything with a negative charge, it's just blocking these things out. So I had to look at the New Age language as people's interpretation, but the Vedic science description as a more kind of like definitive description of what's happening. And then taking all these systems in and just constantly rebuilding what I was experiencing as my human experience.
And then at this point, you must be getting kind of excited about it too, and starting to go, well, wait a minute. I mean, were you looking for an answer to something at this point, as far as like healing trauma or physically healing anything, or just
I was in my nerd hat was on. Yeah, I was just like, what is happening? It was like I was like discovering pages of the vehicle kind of strewn about, and I was like, I've got a CD player, manual. Like. Yeah, right.
I've been listening to 8-tracks all this time. No.
Like, I didn't know I could put this on shuffle.
Yeah.
It was really surreal experience at the point in time. We went to Tulum. We met some people. This is where the healing really began. We met a husband and wife team out there who were healers through another friend who was a warlock. And so when I heard these things, I'm like, no, you're not a warlock, and no, you're not healers, but I'm open. And so, and then I learned that the whole thing, I'm like, oh, okay, you guys are exactly what you say you are. I see it. The warlock, his name's Daniel. Hi, Daniel. He said some words to me that always stuck because it was the truest experience of what we're going through, like globally going through. He said, yeah, man, words are spells. And I said, that's some dope shit. Words are spells. I'm going to hold on to that. That became really kind of a foundation of Tula. But the second thing, the healers, the wife would feel your body almost like a massage, but she's not massaging you. She's looking for like tension lines. And when she would tap into a tension line, it gave her a reading of some experience. My gift, prior to all this stuff, I used to say, if someone says, what's your superpower? I'm like, well, if I had a superpower, I'd want to know everything.
Seeker of information.
That was my entry point to the whole thing. I'm like, I just want to know it all. And I remember people would say, well, I don't want you reading my mind. I'm like, I don't care about your thoughts. I want to know how this whole thing works, all of it, how the whole apparatus works. When she was touching me and saying, forgive your mom and forgive your dad, the guy was saying, this is Jose and Ina. Hi, Jose and Ina. Jose was saying, okay, he was telling me about my mental state at that point in time, the spirit animals that were within those areas. I hadn't had a deep connection to even the word spirit animal. I knew it from our tribal background, but I was like old information. I was like, that doesn't exist. Are you describing a spirit animal as an energetic pattern? And he's like, yeah, it's the same thing. I'm like, okay, so if I make video games, it's the power up I need to get in order to get to this next level. He's like, same thing. I'm like, got you. Okay. So what she was doing was reading all of my trauma lines. A kid who gets spanked, right? You kind of clench up before you get spanked. And
Dina talks about that all the time, how her sphincter tightens.
It does. She's such a bitch. No, but energetically, listen. Energetically, when you go into some space and if people are doing blow or something, my sphincter would tighten.
Told you.
And it would just energetically, it was like a thing, bitch.
Sorry, Lance, carry on.
Please don't. This is good. So at the end of the whole thing, I said, well, forgive my mom and dad for what? And she's like, a lot of your stuff is from, your child and your teen years. So what do you think? And so I started throwing out a couple things, but I wasn't really clued into what was happening. And so later on, they go away. You're going to hear a theme. We end up dropping acid that night. And as it was coming on, Keely, we were talking about the traumatic experiences that we were releasing. And she says, "Oh, did you forgive, your mom and your dad?" I said, "Yeah." But I didn't go super deep. Like I had things to forgive them for, but I didn't know the why.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a moment where something had just kind of come into that moment where my mom was not, she doesn't like give out love freely, And so in that moment, as the acid was kicking in, I saw myself, her, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother, just instantly stretched out over a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them were saying, "I love you" down the very end. And Keely is looking at me as I'm having this experience, and she's looked at me. She's like, "Are you okay?" It looked like I was having she describes it as an exorcism, full contorted face,
Wow,
brutal pain. And the experience was that I broke that generational spell. Like I saw it. I saw how no one was, like how it was being passed down. And I remember talking to my mom about it like a week later. I called her up and I'm like, "Hey, grandmother ever say I love you to you?" And she's like, "No, it wasn't that household." I'm like, "Got it." Right. And so breaking that was a huge release of energy.
Can I ask you a question really quick? Do you think taking the medicinal, like the acid or whatever, helped you sort of drop your logical mind of why things happen the way they happened in order to see that generational thing with your mom and your grandma and stuff like that in order for you to get the healing that you've gotten?
100%.
Okay, because I just wanted people who are listening to know that it's not like you're just doing it for fun. And I mean, you seem to use it as a healing, thing towards your your healing. So that's what I just wanted to make clear.
Yeah, so for me, it's deep introspection. It's I use it for creative exploration on one side, and then the exploration on the other side. And what's interesting, just to touch in on that, people who have bad trips, for me, I always say embrace that, because it's your mind. It's trying to paint a picture for you of something that you need to do to heal yourself. Always, but people tend to shy away from it and run away. Nope, your body will always tell you nothing inside of here can hurt you. So embrace it, enjoy the show, and try to unpack the movie as deeply as you can.
That's amazing.
So just I'll wrap the healing part up, because it began a lot of the journeys of what the blocks were doing, what they were blocking, how removing the blocks was allowing your awareness and naturally your like intuitive nature to expand into new spaces. All those experiences combined, I just took the whole thing very serious. I would go into 9-hour meditations for weeks on end straight. And to go back to your question early on, the more stuff I let go, so it's almost like the junk is going away, right? So the more this stuff goes down, the vital energy was going up. And I didn't know what vital energy was until I had released some of the hard trauma. And the awakening of that, the pain of that, the third eye opening up, felt like my forehead was on fire for a month. But in doing that, it was...
But were you gaining clarity? You were feeling healthier? Were you like actually envisioning yourself living longer when you say vital energy, or feeling like you were just...
I had to learn the language of it, right? So the whole spiritual journey is a language, and you can every culture has their own kind of description of that language, but the language it's the same language across the board. And so I had to get the language in my system. What I didn't know was that the third eye releasing, there's a plexus right there, right? The nerves are just finally kind of coming to. The energy is trying to move through that kind of, from the Vedic science perspective, like tamasic energy, so the super slow, dull energy was trying to move through. And so it, like just having those experiences, the meditations I'd go into were really to like free that energy. And then one day I was like, okay, so what is this stuff? I came across the word Kundalini, and for like a month and a half, I was like speaking the language. And then I was doing some Qigong breathing exercises, and they were like, well, you're Qi. And I was like, are those the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I went back to Vedic science, and they're like, yeah, Kundalini is also your vital energy. And I was like, aha. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing goes down, right? You free the somatic stress, the energy in the body goes dramatically up. And even in that dramatic shift, I was like, so I know the energy is going up, but I should be able to have access to this stuff. What is it going up from? How is it contained in the body? What is allowing it to, if I think lower right foot, 2 seconds later, there's this field that is slowly kind of moving through my body to go to my lower right foot. The fuck is all that? And so it became like another journey of the next leg of this, which was I probably spent maybe 9 months of 2-hour-a-day meditations just focusing in on the vital energy.
Going to specific areas of your body and seeing what that could do?
All of it.
Yeah.
Waking the whole thing up.
What did you learn?
There is no spiritual journey. That kids, for example, have no spiritual journey. And that a broken spirit is what begins the spiritual journey. Mm-hmm. You have a moment where the mind splits out of fear or out of some condition. The consciousness drops into, pain or pleasure or 0 or 1, right? All of a sudden you're in duality. And then you're off to the spiritual journey races, right? Mm-hmm. To figure out how long you're going to be in this before you have your aha moment and get on your practice to clean it all up. The spiritual journey itself really became part of, if my awareness is controlling the mind and the mind body is in control of my, dis-ease, then if I get control of this thing back here, which no one ever talks about, then I'll get control of the mind, and then I'll get control of the vehicle. And so that really became part of the practice. The vital energy really taught me that the body has like 100 gigabit throughput of energy, as an example.
Okay, gamer.
I know, right? So sorry. 0 latency.
Zeros and ones, gigabytes.
Zeros and ones, right? But that the energy wants to flow naturally. Uh-huh. And every traumatic event creates stress in the body. Mm-hmm. It kind of gums up some part of the plexus. Mm-hmm. And so if your crown is blocked up, it's because you've got some beliefs, right? If your throat is blocked up, it's because you can't execute your will. If your third eye is blocked up, it means you can't perceive other people's perspectives. You can't wheel you can't reframe from another perspective. You're just kind of fixed in where you are. If the heart is blocked up, you probably don't care about yourself or other people. If the power is blocked up, you can't execute your intentions, right? And so on and so on and so on. And so, as I was letting things go, the energy in those spots were gaining power. Mm-hmm. And I would start doing like breathing exercises, like Ida and Pingala breathing exercises to like stimulate the plexus. And I'm like, I should be able to do this by thinking it. Like I can move the vital energy just by thought. And so there's got to be a relationship between intention, attention, and where you move things to. And so I started moving my attention to where I thought like the root chakra was, and to the sacral and the solar. And wouldn't you know it, like you get this like subtle buzzing. And I was like, okay, it's the subtle buzzing. So now I need to learn how to lock these parameters into this like location so I can always call back to it. Like, activate root, and it just starts buzzing.
Wow. I had that for a while with like a thing on my hand. I would really focus on that in a meditation for a long time, and it would start buzzing. Mm-hmm. But have you found that applies? And this would be good for Dina to hear too, I guess, or she probably already knows this. I don't know. But as far as like healing certain things in your body,
absolutely, it's the same thing, right? So you're getting access to your nervous system. The way I got access to my nervous system was is the stupidest thing of all time, because I was like, okay, well I know my body's buzzing, and I know it's got to be the nerves that are buzzing. So there's got to be a way to get access to these nerves. And I'm like, it's got to be as simple as like, I don't know, Shazam just says Shazam. And no kidding, I was like, Shazam. And my body just went, boop, like a Christmas tree.
Uh-huh.
Because the intention was to turn on all the nerves at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And all of them, that buzzing you're feeling
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
was just like the whole system lit up. And that was new.
Mm-hmm.
Because that really began the, okay, so if it's the nervous system that I have access to, what's plugged into the nervous system, right? You go to Vedic science, the nervous system gives off EM fields, right? So it's radiating electromagnetic fields. The nadis are describing the actual channels that the prana energy has connection with. So your vital energy goes up. It starts to move around the stuck energy in the body. You get access to the nadis and the channels. It was a lot, but it really kind of opened up my mind to what was happening. And then I started getting into channeling, which was a whole other layer, which is like, at first I thought channeling was out there, and you're pulling something in, but it's really related to the nadis and unblocking the stuck energy channel, literally a channel. Like turning a channel. So you can tune your emotions, you can call it happiness, you can call it sadness, right? We do these natively. But when someone says, I'm a tarot card reader and I can see your future, they're intuiting a lot through their channel.
Right. Because I think of channeling as one thing like we see Abraham Hicks do or somebody, or Dina, even you, and a lot of times in the way things speak through you. And so this, you felt that same type of energy, or was it a different type of energy you were feeling?
It was, I thought the channels were outside, right? But you realize in this practice that there's no outside, that the way we experience physical reality is through the senses. And if we're sense focused, right, we're in our, looking at the quotient, if in your physical quotient, then you're only going to see physical reality. And anything that is beyond that, if your logical mind is the next layer in which the mind operates on, you're going to completely reject, channeling. You're like, no, it doesn't happen.
Right.
It's not real.
Yep.
But the logical mind, when I removed it, and I was trying to make sense of, the energy and what energy was and what physical was, I had to come to the reality that physical is not an actual thing. That atoms aren't physical. They're just little beads of energy, and they make crystalline lattices that gives a semblance of physical reality, but that the nucleus of atoms are spread apart 99% evenly, so you're more empty space than you are physical structure. Like, putting all that together really helped me go, okay, so, we know that between us, we can see like dust particles. So, okay, I know there's something between me. There's a medium between me. But because I can't see it, I think there's empty space. That was always the problem. My logical mind was, if I can't see it.
It's like the whole idea behind changing your vibration, raising your vibration, being that we are energetic beings, and like you just said, breaking it down all the way to like an atomic level or subatomic level of it being these vibrating energetic atoms that can change with your thought patterns.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
The mind has full control over it, and the energy gets expressed through the cells, and the cells add their own energy to your experience. It's mind-boggling, but just reframing the human experience from the awareness out as just input-output. My awareness acts like a state machine. It is detecting, using the senses to detect sensations inside and outside the body. If I've experienced something, without looking at it, if I heard a bird chirp and I'm familiar with it, I would go, okay, that's a sparrow. It's behind me. I don't have to look at it. If I could see a bird right in front of me, hear a chirp I've never heard of, but if I'm talking to you, I would never even look at that bird. It would not even come into my awareness to pay attention to it, because I haven't experienced it. And so all of these help reframe that kind of human experience where I'm like, okay, sense experience isn't real, but we do experience physical reality. When we label anything, it becomes part of our awareness. Um,
And it's
okay,
like
great.
the unlearning of everything that we grew up with is the biggest battle in a way, right? Of just like breaking all that down and going, well, shit, there's something else going on here that nobody talks about, or people do talk about, but maybe not as regularly as what we're taught and what our
100%.
parents say and stuff like that. So that's a long way from where I last saw you, you know, where
Yeah.
you were sitting and you were literally kind of I don't want to say suicidal, but you had some very dark thoughts from what I
Yeah.
remember when we were chatting that night.
Oh yeah.
And
I was definitely had entered that suicidal space,
I thought so.
where what's it all about? What
Well,
am I doing?
do you think that on one level, Lance, just hearing how analytical and how your mind is and how smart you are, that you were just really fucking bored with life at that point, and like I know there's got to be something greater, and whether you were conscious of it or not, like there was something in you that just really had to figure that out, like a
I
calling. Like I a lot of stuff that I believe spiritually too is that there's always this inner being that's sort of calling us forward in that way, and I just kind of feel that for you, that you were really being called in a sense.
I think I have been for a really long time. You know, we weren't raised religious, but
Mm-hmm.
Christianity and Catholicism was in our family history. And I remember at age 12, like the Jehovah's Witness would knock on the door, and I'm like, great, you guys showed up to me. I got questions, and I would
Yeah.
keep them at the door for like a half hour. But that level of questioning
Yeah.
remained until my probably late 20s, early 30s, where
Mm-hmm.
I'd quiz people on their thoughts. I would poke fun at certain experiences that where I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why would an angel need a leather? Where does an angel get leather from to begin with?
Why is
My
Jesus
mind
white?
was, yeah. Oh, don't get me going. Don't get me
Anyway,
going. But
so
it was
how does this all tie into Tula? I want to talk about Tula a little bit too.
when I realized that religion wasn't going to give me an answer. I
Mm-hmm.
turned to science, biology, which I already liked, neuroscience, anatomy, physiology, medicine, like you name it, I went deep into it. And then I was like, okay, so these aren't going to give me the answers either. What I realized between the two of them is that knowledge is the enemy of experience,
Mm-hmm.
and that the quotients are an actual hierarchy, and that if you pay attention to the quotient, physical is on the bottom, intellectual is above physical, emotional is above intellectual, experiential is above emotional, adversity is above experiential. When I saw that
Hmm.
and related to it, I was like, I completely understand the kind of constructive mechanics of reality now, at least on
Mm-hmm.
one level.
Mm-hmm.
Having my full realization was another one. That kind of aha moment, like getting the joke of all this was another one. Okay, so Tula.
Well, that's a lot to go through to
Yeah,
let you have a life-changing new direction that you really want to pursue and share with other people, because it has brought you so much happiness and more health
absolutely.
and a great relationship. And I mean, world of difference when I saw you a couple months ago. You know, I can just,
hmm
you're beaming now.
hmm Yeah, there's a simplicity. Like you get once you get the joke and the um, and we're no longer like wound up into how we imagine things to be.
Mm-hmm.
You're free. And I remember like getting into my values a while ago. 2 years ago, the values had one of the aspects was freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Full three
Yes.
axis, 360 freedom from just the societal norms.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I went deeper into this practice, it became free will.
Mm-hmm.
And someone asked me what's the difference between freedom and free will. I'm like, well, you can look at Myers-Briggs is showing you, they're actually telling you flat out that you're a pattern that they can predict.
Mm-hmm.
And so free will is the opposite of that. And so your ego will function as a need to follow something. So that is a determined pattern. And so I need to escape the ego to be my authentic nature so I can just have free will. That really became like the mode, the mode now.
Mm-hmm.
And so Tula was interesting because Tula was born out of my practice. So when I first started getting into um, designing its mission and vision, I was like, well, what's my mission and vision? When I did my values, I found my purpose, and my purpose was service, and the service was healing.
Mm-hmm.
And once I saw that, that was Tula. I was like, now I see what the top of the point is. Now I need to figure out how to express it. And for about 2 years, I was working with individuals on trying to figure out my practice, and then it became groups on trying to, like refining my practice. And then I found myself in Mexico several times working with yogi shaman on their practice.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized I had become was someone who teaches teachers,
Mm-hmm.
like helping people unlock their own practice for deeper experiences. And so Tool is really kind of born out of all that, which is what it is today. It's kind of multifaceted. The primary focus is to go within to organizations to transform mindset and to evolve the culture. That's kind of Tula's big mission on the public stage. The reason why is because while the spiritual movement is happening on the grassroots level, it's very powerful. It's not happening in the boardrooms,
Mm-hmm.
and the boardrooms is where the vehicle is being steered off the cliff.
Right. It feels like there's very much a separation of church and state with those things happening.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I realized that, in my experience with the work that I've been doing, plus the leadership stuff I've been doing, I just have to combine all this stuff and with the new offering. And so we started the pilot program last year with a bunch of studios in Montreal. The purpose of it at that point in time was to, we were watching teams fly apart. We were watching like the disintegration of leadership, of the organization, of values, because we've got generations who just don't see eye to eye. Lonely souls were starting to pop up, people who were just like on the call but didn't care about what they were doing. We saw people losing passion and fulfillment. I'm like, okay, I can fix this, right? And so, Tula is born out of 3 distinct modes. There's going to be more later on, but those 3 distinct modes is discover, play, flow. Discover is what are the structures that are keeping us out of alignment and separate. So let's dig deep and find these energetic resistances, the barriers, limiting beliefs. Like, let's find these things and go super deep. On the play side, it's effectively, kind of like returning to your youth, where we learn our fastest. We're able to play with each other without judging what they're doing. We're able to collaborate without judging what we're doing, right? We're able to just kind of be using new modes of communication that's far more collective oriented and open, as opposed to what we've created over the last 50 years, which is like army of one. You're defined by your role, and
Right.
that's the barrier.
And when you were describing it to me too, it sounded almost like, we've been so conditioned to productivity, stay on that wheel. And I felt like what you were saying sort of needed to be instilled from what you've learned is more of a start with the happiness first, start with a good foundation of where you are first. And I think so many, look, in the entertainment industry for sure, and I'm sure gaming, it's like some of the bosses I've had, that wasn't the culture. I mean, we thought it was. We did things, there were all kinds of things, activities that we would do to sort of bond together, but it usually was like, let's go drinking together after work.
That's right.
Let's, go to Vegas together as a company. I mean, it was fun. Those were all bonding experiences, sure, but there was nothing in place as far as culture, talking about what worked and what didn't as a team, openly hearing everybody's opinions and that sort of thing. And I think if you can get through to executives really and start from the top down, which sounds like what you're trying to do, and instill how this works and how happiness sort of spreads out and inspires more productivity, really.
That's right. That's right.
That's my understanding of what you're trying to do. Have I got that sort of right?
That's exactly right.
Okay, good.
You can look at it like this, right? Organizations are a pyramid. And so the person who's at the very top of that pyramid turns the first crank, right? They're the very first, cog in the wheel. And so what they put into that crank impacts the next tier down.
Sure.
Right. So if the CEO
And everybody
is
follows that dynamic in that culture that's established by that person. We all want to make this person happy because it affects our livelihood. It affects
right,
how we get paid, how we get raises. You got to
right,
keep that person happy. So it does
right,
start there, right?
right, right. And if they inject fear of financial loss or,
Yes.
missed milestone and we're not going to get paid and they're going to
Right.
have to go in front of their board, right? So they inject fear. That fear goes into the first crank. The directors get the directive and even if the words aren't said expressly,
Mm-hmm.
as in, this is what I'm afraid of, it comes off as you guys have to do this for these reasons. And you can't be late. You've got to be 90% milestone complete, right? The directors get that. They bake that into their plans, and then they project that out to their team.
Well,
With
we know that
whatever,
fear is a motivator,
right,
but you and I, from everything that you just talked about too, we know that energy transmutes. So if you're
right,
walking around being fearful all the time, what are you putting out? You're seeing failure possibly
that's right,
happen, I
that's
feel.
right,
And then what's going to happen to your organization? I mean, is that really what people should want for their company culture and for
that's right,
the best, highest productivity that they can have within the system?
right. You literally manifest your thoughts. So if your thoughts are wrapped
Mm-hmm.
around fear, you're going to get moments that are terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's going to come back in one form or another, but ultimately you're going to be a slave to that fear.
Yep.
And so, it's just really helping people see that all the stories that we're holding on to are just, they're illusory, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're formed by a momentary experience that we've had, and that if we simply were to let that momentary experience go or reframe it, as in it was just a thing that happened and I can move on, we wouldn't be baking in, our kind of, you know, shadow experiences
Right.
into the work experience.
Right. So with your, is it coaching? Are we calling it coaching?
It is coaching in the end. It's really interesting because I find that we're in the alternative wellness space. We
Mm-hmm.
do coaching. There's a word that I'm looking to find that's not quite exactly that or quite therapy. It's none of those because my personal practice starts with the vibration level of the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of pre-psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wouldn't
So
it be like commonality? It's like where we all have in common that we want better lives or we want to be different or show up different. So I don't know whether it's coaching or all of the other things. I think letting everyone know that we all have a lot of things in common more than we had ever thought would sort of bring everyone to an even playing field, I would
yeah,
imagine.
that's right.
You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I do.
But then I would imagine that executives might be resistant towards some of that because they don't want to be on the common
Yes,
ground as the people. So then that would be the ego,
that's the
right?
challenge.
And
That's the
then
word coaching.
you exactly.
I
So
see.
that's why I
I
use the word
see.
intuitive instead of psychic
Uh-huh.
Right.
because a lot of people attach
Yeah.
a lot of things to the word psychic.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine that when you're saying that with that, it's so important because positions are in play for a reason, right? Of
Mhm.
fear base. And you have to be afraid. And so, if we're all on an even playing field, then where is my role? And how do I then stay in control so that you do what I say? And what I feel, is trying to teach is that you're going to get a lot more done is if I feel I can come to you and you're kind of on the same ground as I am, and
Mhm.
that I don't have to be afraid of your reaction or your everything in between that we've been taught to be afraid of like, well, he didn't say anything, but do you think he was mad, or do you
Exactly
and
right.
instead of just being able to come to you with the insecurities that I have and just cut through all the minutia and just be like, hey, like this is what I'm thinking, yes or no, or hey,
Right.
right or wrong, or whatever. It's kind of like we went through a really incredible story of you starting off with meditation, and I'm sure now you have it down to very few words of what's your meaning of meditation, right? And it's different for everybody, but I think it's so powerful that you found a way to make this spiritual realm make sense to you in your very literal way, because you, like me and like her, are seekers of information, and I have to always know why and why it is the way it is, and I can't just be like, ooh, okay, I'll believe. No, tell me how, so that it can make sense to me.
Right.
And now that it makes sense to me, this is how and then you help each individual person, help it make sense to them in the way that they learn, or the way that they see, or the way that they teach, and the way that they consume, right? And so I think coaching, you're right, can be a tricky thing, or it just could be team building, or whatever you could call it, is like building each, it's not ego, but it's more so as teaching to release ego and come in with more of no fear of, hey, I'm going to come in and share my ideas and not feel someone's going to steal them, whatever. And being team players, so that we can all come together and make it all work and get it done faster, instead
100%.
of this one's going to get faster up the ladder than this one. If they come with this, don't tell that one that. And I think that's what everybody's afraid of, is that we've all been put on this system where it's like, your value is this if you do this, and your value is that if you do that. And I think the three of us coming through what we've learned is, we're learning is no one's better than anybody else. We're only as good as our
100%.
practices.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean?
That's
So
right.
it seems very simple, but we all will take a long route to go around and how and why. And then it really is down to the simple thing, is I'm not above or beneath anything.
Right.
We are all coming and sitting, and whatever we can do to facilitate each other
That's right.
and make it better is convincing all the other people out there with that ego and that they haven't learned yet that it is for the greater good.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? And so I think it's really powerful that you were able to teach yourself a practice that is thousands of years old, and many other people have a definition of what it should be, or what they were taught, and you made it very personal to you, which I think is why you have so much passion for it, because you figured it out and you've really got the deep meaning behind it.
That's exactly right.
And I think that's important for people, is that whether they understand what you're saying or what I'm saying or what she's saying, is that find it to make sense the way you can hear it.
That's
Find
exactly
a
right.
way to hear it the way you will actually receive it.
Right.
And then, when we all are looking for those aha moments, this too, meditation and things, will have that for you if you allow it to speak a language that you understand.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well,
So I think
well
it's
said.
really powerful.
Yes.
It's interesting.
Don't ask me where the fuck all that just came from.
No,
I'm
but
just
that's-
saying.
But it's on
I know
point.
where it did.
Yeah.
It's my take on it right now is, it's like X-Men. Like, I've got some Charles Xavier stuff. I'm just helping people unlock their own superpowers. And the more resistance you put up, the harder it is going to be for you to get there. The more you're willing to be open to just trying shit out. I don't know. It doesn't hurt you to try. It's just there's no one's asking you for money. You're only doing it for yourself.
And I'll tell you, my analogy of that is the but, right? So it's like Wonder Woman, I always say, where Wonder Woman has her blocks, and she's like, and you're like, but, so then you're blocking the universe. Yeah, but I can't because blah, blah, blah. Instead of in improv that I learned, yes, and you never say no.
That's right.
Yes, and okay, teach me more. Yes, and I'll try that. Yes, and then it just, so again, I applied it my way, you apply it your way, and she'll apply it her way. So it's literally like let's call it a communal language, where no matter what language anyone's speaking, it gives us subtitles in our own language to where we can receive.
Absolutely. It goes back to the same thing and no one likes hearing this, especially, people within our fields really don't like hearing this. But the truth of the matter is, knowledge is a blocker to experience. And what is knowledge? The field of science is knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
the two can
think about it this way.
coexist. They can coexist, but it's that ego you were talking about earlier of like, no, it has to be this only. Well, I think they do coexist, but
They,
people don't want to
right,
believe that.
right,
Could the Earth have
Well,
exploded out of gases? Yes. Could there have been a big?
right,
Yes. Could that?
right.
but I don't want to believe that if I was forced this whole way to come and have to go through Navy
Right.
SEAL training and
Right.
do all of that shit, and now I've gotten as far as I've gotten, no fucking way am I going to let you take the easy route and come this quick down the middle because you were now at a time in the world where spirituality and whatever in your language was more easy for you.
Right.
And so I get why people will hang on to that as well, because they went to hell and back and only to get where they're at. And they're like, well, no, I'm not giving this up. There's no way. And unfortunately, a lot of people are in that position.
Right. Yeah,
The
that's exactly
unlearning.
right.
Yep, is the hard part. So,
It's-
Lance, for Tula, was there a story behind or a meaning behind that name? Does
Tula
have a
means
meaning?
balance. It's a
Balance.
Sanskrit word.
Thank you.
But I also found in the Muskogee Creek tongue, it also means leaping waters. And so
Nice.
it's really interesting. What I was looking for in a name was something that simply expressed what was the problem. We're
Nice,
out of
I like
balance.
that.
And so Tula is really about regulating the system to get us into balance.
I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
How do you
Association.
go about getting clients, or how do you go about reaching out to people? Do you find that there's resistance, or do you find that you found a market for it?
It's interesting. So both. It's people who've been doing a little spiritual work, they're receptive. People who are in dire straits, they're receptive. Most people who haven't been in either of those spots, they're highly resistant. But organizations, especially within the science tech area, they're seeing what's happening with their organizations and that they're losing a piece of control. And so they've become receptive, but they need to see how this is going to really impact their organization. So, these conversations are just beginning to happen. So the doors are opening more. I haven't gotten a no. I've gotten a lot of curiosity and interest. So, it's a matter of time.
Do you have like a mission statement?
Yes.
Great. I was going to say.
Tell me what it is.
Oh, go ahead.
So the mission right now is there's two things. The mission right now is to reform the way that we work with a human-first approach.
Okay.
That's first and foremost.
I love that.
Right. We've, if you can look at 10 years ago, I remember first hearing the word work-life balance. It was new to me because production was polar opposite of work-life balance. Production to me, right, was grind it out. You cut your teeth.
18-hour days.
Absolutely. For months on end, right?
Yeah.
But now you can look at it as, we've got quiet quitting. We still have work-life balance. We've got other ways, these new languages to describe the illness of the workspace, all within the last, not even 4 years, 3 years, right? And so to me, that paints a very clear picture, combined with this global mental health crisis, that we're in a problem. And so my big goal with Tula is to democratize health, mental health care. And so Tula is a practice. It is systematized and gamified, right? So if you want to take on your own mental health, you simply have to jump into the game and be prepared to take it on.
That is awesome.
And it's ritualistic, which means that you can just do it for the first 20, 30 minutes of every morning, right? Your time, carve it out for yourself, just do these things, and over a space of time, you'll get to this destination.
That's very
Can
cool.
I give one prediction before we close it up and
Sure.
stuff about your company? I'm going to tell you, since you're a gamer and you're into what you're in, I wouldn't put it past you if down the line you would have an Oculus game where people with their mental health, they put in a few things and it took you in a guided meditation. So those of us who, I'm somebody, it's called aphantasia, where I can't visualize something, it's dark, but I know the way I see it, so that I can go through that guided meditation through a video game, and it is for mental health, and it facilitates that.
Right.
I think that is going to be something very successful you're going to do. Anyway.
I don't know how you just did that, but those conversations are happening right now. They started 2 weeks ago.
There we go.
Wow.
Are they happening with our friends Chris and Scott?
We just started talking.
I knew it. I knew it.
Amazing. So see, I've got goosebumps everywhere, and I'm telling you, it's a very big thing.
Go Critter Stock.
Right.
That's amazing.
It's a very big thing.
And
I'm
Lance,
excited for you.
I'm
It's
excited
a big
for
deal.
you too. Happily share any information
How do we
Lance has
find
in
you?
the show notes, so y'all just look there. We'll put everything for you to connect with Lance.
What an incredible story of how you've gotten yourself to where you are, because I think that a lot of people give up in the very beginning, go, oh God, this is a lot, but you just kept seeking and seeking. So you were hungry for something, and you what a gift you gave yourself.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and this is for everyone. This is not a
yes.
It's not a thing to keep, because I think everyone needs to experience their actual authentic nature. Not being filtered through.
But we're not taught how to. And so
exactly
I think this is the gift. What happens is, once you realize that none of this is real, in the sense of like letting go of the childhood things or the things, yes, those, you don't have to become those episodes, but we weren't taught how not to. Right. And so at the end of the day, our ego will hold on to things, or we will hold on to things that we were taught. But now that we're all realizing that you don't have to, and a lot of times you're not supposed to. Those are experiences, and those aren't supposed to define you. You're supposed to keep learning and having more experiences. And I think that's going to take practice, and a lot of us out here, trying to combat that issue.
There's one thing I'd like to add, which is, Native cultures I don't know if they still have this, but they used to have practices specifically for this, which is, your vision quest. You're of an adult age, here's your bag of peyote and your pocket knife, and go into the woods, kill your ego, and come back a contributing member.
Yeah.
Right? We do not do practices like that. We hold on to childhood until we're gone.
Right.
And we never let it go. So that, to me, a resurgence of something like that, a rite of passage, is, I think, critical to where we are today.
Yes, agreed. And I have one quick question for you before you leave, Lance. What were some of the games you worked on for all of the gaming nerds out there?
Whew.
I can say that because I am a nerd.
So it started with MechWarrior 2 at Activision in '92. I made a handful of semi-interesting games. Spent some time in film for a while on the film Contact. That was fun. Anaconda, that was interesting. Back in games was Uncharted 1, then Medal of Honor, Airborne, then Medal of Honor 2010, Avengers, never made it, sadly. Cloud Imperium was Star Citizen guys. So many games.
Games.
My favorite experiences are always the ones where teams come together. Thank you very much.
So nice meeting
absolutely.
you.
It's a real pleasure meeting you.
Yes.
And thank you, Ashley.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Lance.
Yeah,
so
thank you,
lovely to see you, and I wish you all the best with this.
Thank you very much.
Can't wait to see what happens.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for joining.
Bye.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Join us here each week as we unpack life in the new normal with a new hashtag Subtle Change Profound Impact from Coach Dina. To get a little daily inspirational message in your social feed, follow us on YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Copyright 2020 Angel Baby Films, all rights reserved. For entertainment purposes only.